Space Engineers isn't your normal space game. It involves exploration, creativity, and most important of all, imagination. In Space Engineers, the want and desire to continue building, being better, improving from your failures and results is embedded into you.
Because there's so much to do, there's so much to build, there's so much to explore, there's so many game options you can start with. Everything from a crash ship to spawning in a solar system, flying around in a ship, to landing a drop pod on a planet, to having a planetary rover. Like, there's all kinds of ways you can start the game, which we usually start with the drop pod. Dropping down onto a planet and grabbing our starter tools and immediately start mining things that, just so that we can start refining things and getting our supplies and start building. Because while we are starting on this planet, that's not where we want to stay. That's not necessarily our permanent home.
This game has gravity, it has advanced physics in it. And if you're not prepared for some of these physics, it can be kind of humorous. There are a lot of funny things that can happen. And the game can throw some curveballs that could make you go, darn it, that really sucked. But I feel like there's always a way for you to come back from it. And when you first drop onto this planet, you have a survival kit. And this survival kit allows you to put stone that you can mine with the drill they give you. You can start making components from it and then start putting down the foundations of of a base. And from there, you can then maybe make a better refinery, a real assembler, and then move your survival kit over there. But you need to power it. So you have to make a windmill.
That all sounds like a lot. It really does. But it's not really. Once you get started and once you see what you can do and what you can build and all of that, the possibilities that open up in front of you once you start to get some of those components and get just a very basic base built, and you start to build that first vehicle, whether it be a rover, whether it be a miner, whether it be an exploration ship, or whether you're building a giant spaceship to get off planet. Like, that all starts to open up the rest of the game for you, and that's what opens up the inability to stop playing Space Engineers, because it's always makes you want one more thing. I need to go get this one
Yep.
more supply. I need to test this one more thruster.
There are so many things to build: a rover, atmospheric, a hydrogen thruster, a miner, a digger, an ore detector, a scout ship, a combat ship. There are so many ways to build whatever you want in this game. And sometimes when you're designing these ships, but again, because there's advanced physics in this game, you might make a mistake. You may not put enough gyros on it, so your ship turns really slow. Or you build a beautiful miner, gorgeous miner, and you fill it with too much ore and you didn't realize you don't have enough thrust power to stop yourself from slamming into the side of a mountain. What ends up happening is you end up troubleshooting it either while you're there because you lost a couple of thrusters, and you limp it back to your base and you start figuring out, how can I make this better?
Is this doesn't work like other video games where you can be flying around or driving around or whatever and immediately come to a stop. When you're flying that ship towards your base to dock it, to empty your inventory, to recharge, whatever it may be, you can't just hit top speed, get close to your base, put on the brakes, and immediately stop. You have to realize, like, this has a physics engine in it, and you have to slow yourself down before you'll stop, whether that be
Mhm.
slightly because you're not going very fast, or whether you have to come to a complete stop by turning on reverse thrusters and powering those to max to slow yourself down. And again, you brought up the weight of the ores. That all changes how fast you're going, how fast you're falling because of gravity, how hard your engines have to work to get you off the ground. Like, you have to think about all of that when you're piloting any vehicle in Space Engineers, or even certain things with your base. Like, all of that has to come into play.
What's also cool about this game is you're not just stuck to this one planet. Again, there are solar system worlds you can play in, and one of the fun things is getting off planet because that's where you find the uranium, the platinum, and you can make uranium reactors and some other cool gear such as Gatling lasers, rockets, warheads. All these cool things because there are NPCs in the game. There are other dangers like wolves and spiders can also be found on these planets, and they are dangerous. They're not no joke, and you have to defend yourself. Now, not all NPCs are hostile to you. There are ones that will trade with you, and it's cool because you end up kind of discovering this game has like its own kind of ecosystem, And because it's a survival game, you can die from lack of energy. You can run out of oxygen, like you said. There are so many things that make this a survival game, but you also have a lot of things that make it so there's a lot of freedom to the game as well.
Some of the funnest moments we've had, in my opinion, is going out into space and getting into those space battles and having an entire crew on a big ship having to man different guns while someone's flying and trying to get away from the enemy and we're being chased like that. When you first start Space Engineers, especially if you start in the drop pod like we were talking about earlier, and you're mining ore and you're starting to build a tiny base and you build your first little ship, like you don't really think about what else you can do out there. You don't think about what it's going to be like to be up in space with a fighter jet or with a big, huge ship crewed by several people, because this is a multiplayer game. You can play with a lot of people and you can have an entire crew of people running different ships or manning the same ship. Like, again, there's so much you can do, and it's all down to your imagination. It's all up to you to what you build, how it works, where you explore, and what kind of trouble you get into.
Now, let's talk about some of the other fun details of the game. For new players, there is an amazing tutorial teaching you how to fully play the game, experience it, but there are a lot of scenarios you can play too, where you can be immersed in combat right away with ships or on foot combat as well. And one of the other things that I find really enjoyable about the game is mods. Mods make it go from like a level like 6, I want to do something next, to like a level 35, I'm ready to do the next thing, I'm ready to be better. And there are a plethora of mods out there. Mods that make the game way easier, mods that make you go faster so you can smash your ship like dimension a lot more. And there are a lot of cool factors into it. There are even mods that make the game even harder. One of my favorite ones is called Eden's Wrath Engineering. But mods just enhance the game. But vanilla wise, I have to honestly say again, I can't wait to build my next thing. I can't wait to make my next thing. And that's what matters to me when it comes to these survival games. How long can I keep playing this before I burn out?
I wouldn't, for me, wouldn't call it burnout that keeps me away from Space Engineers from time to time. I feel like it's more of a distraction. I get distracted from Space Engineers and I don't go back to it for a while. I see it on my list or I hear people talk about it and I'm like, man, I really wish I had time to play that. And then eventually I get back around to playing it and I'm like, man, I forgot how much I missed playing this game. I forgot how much I miss building and learning new things, because Space Engineers is one of the games that we say fits into diet survival or survival light. It is a survival game kind of at its core. There are some survival elements, but it's missing some of the other ones that some of the other games we cover have. But you brought up mods. There are mods out there that add some of those missing aspects. You can have hunger, you can have thirst. There's mods out there for that. There's already NPCs that are hostile to you and friendly to you, but there's mods that add other hostile creatures, such as like ghosts of astronauts or zombies, if you want to call them that. Things like that. There's mods that add drones into the game that fall, or droids into the game that will spawn on you and try to take you out. Like there's so many things mod wise that you could do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things about Space Engineers that is awesome. Whether you're a person who loves only combat, PvE, PvP, you like to be a miner, you like to be a builder, you like to be a ship designer, this game allows you to take on any role you want to and still contribute to the good of your multiplayer session with your friends, or to help benefit the overall game. And if you're playing solo, you can even program your ships to act on their own and be their own AI and defend your base. There are so many things to this. And this is why I think most people can't put Space Engineers down. Well, folks, thank you very much for joining us for our episode of Space Engineers and how we can't put it down. Join me in thanking Dimension 119 and Red Falcon for being part of this podcast and always being here for me. Thank you very much for watching the State of Survival podcast. Ta-ta for now.
See you in another dimension.